Microphone check. That works. All right. Can I go? Well, hold on. Let's do this first. What are we doing today? One new tweet. Oh my God. Terrence McGee. I love this guy. Okay. Can you get some water real quick? And then, be right back. We'll start in a moment. Oh, wait. Forgot I went to get water, but didn't actually get water. Okay. Hello and welcome. Math and programming. Mostly programming these days. We'll do some math later. I think today we're gonna fix some bugs first because I'm very close to finishing what I was doing before. There's just a few bugs I want to iron out. And then we're going to finish the material system that I started last week. I made a little bit more progress with it, but there's still one thing to do to make it a completely generic material system, and so I have to do that. So I figure we just tackle that last bit tonight. Should be a small enough bite to chew. Definitely wasn't able to do the whole thing last night. So, yes. So where are we here? Let's take a look at what we have. Hello, it's a level editor. And here's a level. All of these are placeholder light maps. Okay. And if I control G, it will throw me into the actual game. Just look at it there. I can fly around. There's no physics or collision yet. And the light maps have not been loaded into the actual game yet. They only appear in the editor. And this is what I need the material system for. This microphone is huge. Let me get that out of the picture some. So this is the basic idea. This is what I'm driving towards with a bunch of the changes that I'm working on. I want to be able to see the light maps that are available in the editor. I want to be able to see them here in the game. Oops. And this is the bug that I got on the second time that I press Control G to go into the game. I get a crash here, and I haven't looked at exactly what the crash is yet, so I figured this would be a good on-stream exercise. Investigate this this last remaining problem with what I was doing before. So what was I doing before? I did the material system, and then I got that to a state that it would compile, and then I pretty much just checked it in. It's incomplete, though. It's not completely generic as it needs to be. So we'll do that later tonight, but then I switched back to what I was doing before last week's stream, which was kind of getting a very basic entity list system going. Meaning like a way to manage entity creation and destruction. I think we worked on that even on stream before, but I've pretty much almost finished it, and I'll go over what it looks like here. Where can I start? Where can I start? So this is like, oh yeah, I think I do remember talking about it on stream at some point. Have an entity class here, and then an entity list is just a list of entities. And then when an entity gets created or destroyed, I need some consistent way to say, okay, this is all the data that the entity has. Fill out that data with its initial values, like where it's going to be in the world, what model it's going to have, all this stuff. Fill all that out, and then when that's filled out, you can but in order to fill that out, you have to know all of this, a bunch of things about the entity. Like first you have to know that this class exists, and so we have this gross macro soup right here. And I believe I decided on stream to do it the macro soup way instead of some other way. So you have this macro soup, which is not, it's gross, but it's not unheard of that a game engine should use this sort of thing. Source uses it, Unreal uses it. I'm sure other engines use it. So it is kind of gross, but there you have it. It's pretty effective, and it does what it needs to do. So here we have define entity, and this is just a macro that, let's go see what's in it. It says static mesh is the class, and an entity is the parent class. And then over here you have define entity, and it just defines a bunch of stuff that we're gonna need. So a way to get the data. So this is the important thing. This is what I'm using that file format library for that I developed on stream a while ago. Each entity is automatically going to have its own associated file format class. And those are here. You can see I only have one right now. Okay. And it just has a mesh file. So when it comes time to save the game, we're just going to take all of the formats from each entity, and they're already like an on-stream, I'm sorry, an in-memory file format. So it's already ready to be serialized to the disk. No additional work has to be done. You just have to copy it into a file, and then write that file, like copy it out, like write it out onto the disk. All of the data should already be there. So at some point I'll have to write that code, but I'm not going to worry about it now. The idea is that every entity will have one of these formats. Okay, so if I have a door, it has its own format. And versions, and it has to be namespace entities. Namespace entities. So, for example, if I want to make a door entity, I have to do this. And what are the properties of a door? I don't know, color, whatever. You put all the properties of the entity right here. Okay. So every entity, every time I create a class, every time I do register entity class, it expects me already to have created this format, this file format. So that's the way I'm doing this here. So the define entity macro automatically creates this file format for you. And then it gives you a way to access it. Some helper functions, this sort of thing. And then when you do register entity class, which is what I've done here, it sets up a bunch of functions that can create and destroy that data. Okay, or actually it just sets it and unsets it. And then when you come in here, if there's an associated format, so it's going to create the entity, and if there is an associated format, then it will create an instance of the format and fill it all with the initial data that it needs. So there'll be another similar like save entity, you know, that takes this format that got instantiated and tacks them all onto a file and then writes the file out to disk. Should be super quick to save the game that way. And so you can save the game. I think like this should be a lot faster than the way I did it before. I could save the game every frame probably with this, and you know, it would slow the game down a little bit, like not a terrible lot. Like it should be really quick. Because everything's already there in memory, you just gotta copy it. So that's pretty cool. So that's what I did. So having explained that, let's see if we can fix this bug. So let's see. We're loading the level, and we already had the level loaded, so we gotta unload it. To unload it, we just iterate through all the existing entities of the game and remove them. So we remove them. When we remove an entity, we have to free the data instance. Oh, good thing I talked about this. We have to free the format instance that it created. Something must be going wrong there. So that means you have to get it from the entity and then call free on that. How is this? Oh. So when so this is cool. When 000 is on the stack, that means execution tried to jump to a null pointer. Like you had a function pointer. What do function pointers look like in C++? Something like this. Function pointer. And a function pointer is like a pointer to a function. You can let's see if I have function 1 here and function 2. Okay, quick review on what is a function pointer for anybody who might not be familiar. You know, I can set it to function 1 and call that, or I can set it to function 2 and call that. Okay, so it's a way to have like a dynamic function where a function can be an object that you assign, that you like pick which function you want to call. Very similar to like so for example, a virtual function table is going to be implemented with basically a bunch of function pointers. And depending on what object gets created, different function pointers get assigned in, and then you call through that function table whenever you call it. Like C++ hides this from you. That's what happens in the background. They look the same as C, right? Well, so this is the C way. Not quite sure what your question is, so I'm just going to say a bunch of stuff. This is the C way of declaring a function pointer. And we've done right here. Actually, I think this is the proper syntax. Because this is the type. And so you say the type, and then you create a function called P, and then you assign this F1. So this P will actually call F1. Okay? So this is the C way of doing it. The C++ way of doing actually, I think it's the same in C++, except that in C++ there's also this thing called stud function, and your same thing would look like this, and it's a lot more heavyweight. But I think you can just do like that, and then call like that. With stud function, you can also do closures, so there are some extra features with stud function that aren't available this way, but like in general, this is the C way, and this is the C++ way. So in general, like, well, and this is also, there's also this. There's also, the lambda way of doing things, right? And I think you can actually, like, can you do this? Something like that? I'm not even sure. Okay, I'm not even sure. Anyway, there's a lambda, which is kind of like a function pointer, but not. I don't know how lambdas and function pointers are gonna mix together. So okay, so you can do this. You can assign a function, a regular function, to something that accepts stud function. And you can assign a lambda that takes no captures to a function pointer. But as soon as you start capturing something here, then that's no bueno. You can't do that. So that's the, okay, so that's a function pointer. So I have a little function pointer here. Actually, I think it's not even a function pointer. Is it a stud function? No, it's a function pointer. Okay, I didn't want to get fancy with the stud function. So I think what's happening is my function pointer is null. Yeah, right there. You see it. My function pointer is null, meaning that when it like normally the function, here's an actual function pointer. You gonna give me a tooltip? No. Let's see if I can make it. No, so here, let me do this. Print this. Print. Okay, there you go. So the function pointer is actually just a regular pointer, and you can see it points to an address in memory. And if I take this address in memory and I load it into the, okay. We're gonna have a little learning experience here. Where's... I don't know how to use this debugger, so I'm trying to find, like, if I can get it to show me all the memory. None of this stuff. Memory. Show me memory. This button? Oh, I'll do it like this. I know how to do the command line version, so I'll just do that. So I'm having it read, let's read 256 bytes of memory starting at that address. So this 1320, and we're gonna see what's there. It looks like junk. See, here's what it is in text form, but it's actually instructions. So it's actually instructions, because that's like the physical address of the actual instructions that are gonna be run when you call that, or what is it? mdestroy callback. Okay, when you dereference that function pointer, it just sets the execution pointer, like the EIP, the instruction register, to that, and then it just starts playing the program from there. So that's pretty cool. Except that, see, I just have null here, and I did that because where did I do that? I knew it was a bad decision when I did it. I shouldn't have done it. Where did I do it? And we can undo it. No, not here, not there. Here. So I'm pretty sure that, hold on, I'm pretty sure this is what's going on. Yeah. So when okay, so my just entity class, which is just a regular old entity and not anything specialized, when that's what we're looking at, I don't actually have a register entity class, because nothing is going to be just an entity alone, right? You're not going to have something in your game that's just entity and nothing else. So I don't have a register entity class for that. So then I don't have this junk where it sets all of these functions and creates an entry in the table. So where'd it go? Over here where I'm like, if I ever want to look for an entity class registration, sometimes I'm looking, sometimes because of all the metaprogramming that I'm doing, I might look for this entity class and I have to return something. And so instead of returning null pointer, I'm just going to return a blank function. Is that what I should do? Should I return a blank function? Hold on, let me see what the actual class is. Yeah. Yeah, I should have it like return. So this is a function that gets the data that the data object that I explained before, and it should just return nothing. So let's see. Get rid of these guys. All right. Return null. Return nothing. Right. Oops. Maybe not. Wait. Yes. There. So I think that should do it. So instead of giving it null, we're just going to give it a function that's empty. So now when it tries to call through that function pointer, it won't be. Oh, and I screwed up somewhere. I'll bet. Something like. What did I do? Did that do it? That did it. So let's see if that works. And where is it? Remove entity. I think that is where the error happened. So we'll stop this. What am I doing? I'm writing a game engine. We're fixing a bug right now. Later I'm going to continue with the material system, which I was doing last week. So okay, that looks like it compiled. Control G. So great. And now we'll see what happens when I do Control G again. So now we're hitting this because we're trying to clear out the level from the first Control G. So now I hit this breakpoint. Let's step in here. Come on. And so now, yeah. So now you see we don't have null pointers anymore. We have actual, yeah, we have these anonymous lambdas that I created before. Okay. So let's go ahead and step in there. Yeah, so it's just going to create this anonymous lambda, which is going to return a null pointer. But we're not done because we can't pass this null pointer into free instance because it's going to bork. Yeah, I don't think I protect against that. So let's see, where were we? Free instance. All right, B2BF. So we're gonna stash it off here. And we're only gonna free it if it's a valid instance. All right. Either way, we'll set it to null just after that. And I think that should resolve the bug. Let's see if it crashes this time. Build real quick, succeeded. Play it. Control G. Good. Control G again. All right, so we hit the breakpoint. So now we're gonna see, we got no instance, and so we don't free anything, everything works fine. Now I'll continue. Oh, so we hit it again. We hit it again because there are two entities in the level, but this one should actually have an instance, and it does. And so this guy should get freed. So we step in there. Actually, I'm not even bother stepping through. Okay, everything works fine now. Bug is fixed. Play it again. Ooh, an assert failed. Okay. Why did the assert fail? So the assert is that we don't have any allocated data. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Oof. Okay. So over here somewhere, this is like a check that I wrote for myself. This is the lambda that will like allow you to set the data instance. And I wrote a little check for myself that if you try and set the instance and there's already an instance there, then that's a memory leak. But actually we just freed that instance. So I'm not sure this check is valid actually. So I'm just gonna have to deal with that. Hopefully I won't write any memory leaks. Or at least I'll have to deal with the check at a higher level. Deal with the possibility of memory leak at the higher level. So, all right. So we'll compile that. Run it. All right, Control G, here we are. Come over here, Control G again, and it works. Let's come over here. Control G. Yep. All right. We have a pretty much functioning entity system for what we need to do for now. Oh no. So I just closed and we hit this leak, which we hit if we leak some references. So there's some resource somewhere that is not being freed, and which resource 21? So let's see what that is. Resources dot 21. It's a pipeline state data, a pipeline state object. I think we can actually see its name. Light mapped. This light mapped pipeline state object is not getting freed. So where do I create that? Light mapped. Light mapped. Okay, here's where I'm creating the light mapped pipeline state object. So for some reason, it's not getting freed. I'm creating it in this renderer. And this renderer, if I believe, is being created here. That thing should get destroyed. This is odd. So I guess maybe it hasn't been destroyed, but see, it gets destroyed right here. Let's set a breakpoint and see what's going on there. Okay. Oops. Well, this is the one we really wanted to step into. Okay, so we're going to step into the destructor, which, okay, it sends us to the grotto renderer. This grotto renderer should destroy a bunch of stuff, but that's not what we want. Okay, here we want the regular renderer, which has the light mapped PSO right here. So it looks to me like it's destroying this PSO. Yeah. Type 11. Great. I don't even know what asset type that is. What asset type is that? 11. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's a uniform buffer. Yeah, so it's just going to go through and delete all of the resources. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, this is the actual pipeline state right here. So it is deleting it. I don't know, man. Oh, I think this is actually the one. There are like, you can see there are like 3 pipeline state objects here, but I think this is the actual one that we want to delete because it's going from the bottom of the class up. So let's see. Step into it. And, well, okay. I'm not going to be able to see it from here, unfortunately. But, let's see. When we step into clear, it should, it gets the resource here. It's light mapped. All right. How many references does it have? 0. Oh, that looks like it worked correctly. But we still get the problem. Thinks that there's still one outstanding reference. I'm very confused. Let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. All right, we have to, there's like a, I want to see what's in this. I wonder if I should even tackle this bug right now. Yeah. Should I move on to the material system or tackle this? Let me know if anybody wants me to move on to the material system and we can finish that thing. Otherwise, I'm going to spend a little bit more time tackling this bug. I don't like to leave a bug outstanding like this. If anyone's bored and wants to see the material system stuff, then we can move on to that. So let's see here. All right. So I want to get a pointer to the resources somehow. Oh, let's do it this way. Print. No, wait, I can't do it this way. How does this thing get its pointer? Relax, dog. Relax. Here it is. Is this gonna work? Oh, give me a break. Yay, it works. So now I know I can get the resources anywhere I am. Okay. Resources. There we go. So it claims that there are 2 references to this PSO. So I'm going to call the destroy function, which shouldn't actually do anything. I'm going to step over that. Now there should be still 2. Now when I call the destructor, I'm going to skip over the destructor, and that should destroy everything. But still 2 references, so oh, that's very weird. We saw the 2 references. We saw at least 1 reference being destroyed. So I'm very confused now. Let's dig in and see why it thought it was being destroyed when it wasn't. So that's 1 resource handle. Here's 2 resource handle, asset type 5. I think this is the one we want. We go into the clear function. We look up the resource. Resource has 1 reference. Let's look at the pointer to this guy. What's the address of the pointer? E7EO. Now let's look at the pointer to the resource. This resource that we have right here, it's a different pointer. Pipeline state data. I wonder now if there are like different, somehow if there are different, how could that be possible? If I only create 1 pipeline state, just 1. Let's look in the constructor and see what's happening in the constructor. This is a bit of a mystery, I think. Let's go in the renderer. Render. Render. Going into the renderer, tinker, render, okay. And oh my goodness, what was I doing here? Right. Gonna put a breakpoint there. Gonna try and find what's going on. All right. Well, that's odd. Oh, well. Okay. Okay, so there's no 21st resource, which is as we expect, because we haven't created this thing yet. Okay, so let's step in here. Build shader profiles. All right. We use this draw context. Okay. We load the vertex handle. We load the fragment handle, or the shader data. And then we create a task to actually create the pipeline state, and this task relies on the vertex and fragment shaders being compiled, push it onto the task list. Here's where we actually create the resource. Here's the type of resource. We got a pointer to a resource now. And we use a shitty programming algorithm. It's amazing, isn't it? It's pretty amazing. Where does our hash start? 21. Good. 21 is not occupied. So we're going to put this straight in item 21 in our hash table. All right. So it's not there. And then now it's there. Okay. Let's see its data. There are 0 references, which is as we expect because we just created it. And let's make sure that's still true. Still 0 references. 0 references. So at some point it's got to create those references. You okay? Okay, so this is just filling out data right here. Okay, so this is where it's actually going to create the reference. So it still hasn't created any reference yet. Reference is 0. So now it's going to create this handle. This is the first handle. The handle is going to create a reference. Should have done so. So now there's 1 reference because this handle is the reference. Then we're going to jump out of that function. And once we assign it to this value right there, now there's should still be, okay, still only 1 reference. All right, so everything's good so far. Everything's good. We have only 1 reference. Everybody's happy, hunky-dory. Let's see, what do we want to do? Let's come down here and turn this breakpoint on and run to the first time we try and render something. There it is. Let's see how many references we have now. Well, now we have 3. What? Okay, well is that surprising? Which is the one that didn't get? Oh, it's probably this one. So that one handle probably got stored in a bunch of different places, and so now there's somewhere that it's not being cleaned up from. And I'll bet you it's here. So let's look at material data and understand what's inside it. So material data is the thing that we were filling out last time. It holds all of the data. This actually might be a bug from last week. Material data holds all of the data that that a material has. So you can see it. This is like the raw data from the. I can actually probably get rid of this because I load it entirely into this other data. But this is the raw format from the disk. And then we have the PSO. So this other handle to the PSO will create another reference. And so that might be the reference that's not being freed. And then an array of all of the textures that were specified in the handle, in the material file. So all of this stuff should get loaded into the material right there. And maybe this pipeline state handle is the one that's not getting cleared out. So let's see. When we get the PSO from the material, that should create actually even another reference. So now there are 4. All right. And it draws things. And then when it returns from the function, PSO. Actually, how many are there now? There might even be, nope, there are still 4. Yeah, okay. So when we return from the function, it should destroy the handle, this handle right here. So references will go back down to 3. Back down to 3, good. It's 3. So everything's good. So let's make sure that this material data gets destroyed properly. That might be our problem. When do I destroy things? I don't remember what my process is for destroy. Hold on. I don't even remember how I create these things. Oh, destroy material, yeah. All right, well, that's probably a good place to put a breakpoint. Resources. Destroy material. All right, then close it, and here we go. Destroy material. So it's unloading the resource. At some point, it should try and free the resource. There it goes. So let's step out of this and out of this, and then into that. Yeah. Okay. So at this point, how many of these references exist? 2. Interesting. And it's going to destroy one of them now. And it's gone. And probably what is the last one? I'm super confused. Okay, let's do this the old-fashioned way. Resources. We're just gonna find somewhere that we can stick like a print function, and we're gonna print all of the times that our references increase and decrease. Okay, so we can get a handle on what is going on. So we'll print the current resource handle pointer, actually the current resource, the pointer to the resource. And let's see here. We're going to decrease, and here's the resource, and then here's the new value. Okay, and actually let's do this. Only if t equals assets type pipeline state. Just to cut down on the spam a little. And then we'll do it again for when we increase. It should be the same code. Increase. All right, does that compile? Yeah. Good, so we're gonna print all increases and decreases. We're gonna figure out what is the cause of this leak. Close that. All right. Continue. Continue. What? It didn't leak that time? Oh, maybe I actually have to. There it is. So I actually have to get into the game for it to leak. That's fine. Okay, all right. So here's a decrease right here. So this must be our one. So what's the pointer that we're concerned about here? E7EO, and there it is, E7EO. So when was E7EO? Oh wow, E7EO changes a lot. I guess that makes sense because every time the game draws, it makes a copy of the handle and then deletes it. But that's a really cheap operation, so I'm not so worried about that. Okay. E7EO gets created right here. E7EO, another reference to it. E7EO, and then there's this loop of creating and destroying references to it a lot. And then destroy. So hold on. E7EO, create. And then create, destroy, wait. Create, destroy. Create, destroy. Destroy. There's definitely one extra create. All right, so let's see if we can track down where all of these are. Here's the first one, obviously. I'm gonna write a print before and after it so we can track what's happening. Creating light mapped. Okay. Created. Now down here we're gonna say copying PSO, copied. Now at the bottom of the function, the PSO is going to go out of scope and destroy it. So we're just going to write it, but we can't write like an after the out of scope one. So we'll just leave it right there. All right. Where else can we put these? In resources, destroy material. Here. Destroying resource, that will be before it kills our PSO, and then destroyed. Okay, where else? Where else can we have a PSO created or destroyed? Oh yeah. Create PSO. Wait. Load material. Gotta make sure these printfs are all unique, right? Otherwise it doesn't help. So we load the material. There might be some other stuff wrapped up in there. Let's see what that gives us. All right. Compile that. Run it. Control G. Control W. Or Command W, or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and copy this to an actual buffer to make it easier to read here. All right. So E7EO is again the address of our resource. Good, it got put in the same spot. That's convenient. So we create it. So load material. Let's see. So yeah, no surprise, it creates a whole bunch of other stuff. Well, is that a surprise? Here. It increases and decreases a lot of other resources, but they all get decreased again, so that's fine. But the one that's important to us gets increased. So load material. So this one is right here when it gets assigned to the material data. Okay, so that one's fine. When is it used next? Oh, it's another load material. It's loaded into 2 materials? That is very interesting. I find this very interesting. Okay, well that shouldn't happen. I don't think that should happen. I think that should not happen. So then let's see. So it probably destroys the resource right here. Oh, but it doesn't kill the render. Okay, I have to. At some point it kills the renderer. Let's see. Here. And right here. Around here it will kill the renderer. Killed. All right. Killing the renderer should account for the last free. When it frees a handle, okay. Control G, Command W, great. Copy all this somewhere else. And same pointer, okay. So it creates the light map and then it loads the material. So this is like when the renderer gets created, it creates the light map. Then it loads the material, but then it loads the material again, which I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to do. So that's probably the extra one. Now it's just doing the render loop for a while. So it will just create and destroy the PSO handle. So now it's gonna kill the renderer. Oh, that's weird. It says killed before the guy gets decreased. Did I do something wrong there? I think I did. No, I didn't. What? Be free. Be free doesn't call the destructor. What is going on? I'm gonna bring this breakpoint back because I think vFree is calling the destructor or something. Okay, hold on. Get to the bottom of this soon. Like this. All right. Step. So we want to kill the renderer, and we destroy the PSO right here. So that. Okay, no, this is all part of the rendering loop. So now we're killing stuff. Very violent. So we're going to step over the destructor for the game systems. And inside the game systems lives the renderer. And inside the renderer, there's a handle to this thing. So it should get cleaned up. But it didn't. Very interesting. Definitely some wonky stuff going on. And then vFree happens. But Is this right? Is during v free? No, it's not during v free. Okay. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to set a nice little breakpoint so I can see when this thing is getting called. Because I don't trust it anymore. How do I... Still not terribly familiar with Xcode. Oh, it's not showing me any header files. I want to go to a header file. How do I do that? Come on. Tinker. Take me to your header file. Good. So I'm going to put a breakpoint there. And then we're going to see, so let's jump back to the call stack. We're going to see when it actually calls that. Oh, and there it is. Is this the one that I want? No, this isn't even the one that I want. It'll be the next one. Okay, that's fine. What's it doing though? Oh, it's destroying the debug UI. It's tearing down the debug UI, but that shouldn't have a handle to the to my lightmap PSO. So we should be good. Oh, there it is again. So now it's tearing down the renderer for the level editor. For the level editor. Oh, thank you. That's very odd. So there are two renders here. There's a render in the level editor and there's a render in the actual game. They should carry separate handles to two separate... Is that true? Hold on. No, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think they should have two separate handles to two separate light mapped objects. And maybe that's what's going on. Maybe the two the two pipeline states are getting confused. But hold on. Creating, yeah, see, creating light map happens twice. But this time, it's a different handle that gets created. So let's see. So clearly what's happening is the light map, the editor is creating one, and the game is creating another because they, you know, the editor doesn't know the game exists and the game doesn't know the editor exists. So let's see which one is the one that's not getting destroyed properly. I'm going to put this breakpoint back. I mean, it's got to be the first one, obviously. Clearly, it has to be the first one. And there it is, E7EO. And the first one is the level editor. Okay. So it's the level editor's PSO that's not getting deleted properly. That's interesting. See, it says level editor right there. I'm talking with food in my mouth. All right. So the level editor creates this PSO and doesn't destroy it properly. That's good information. That means that the regular one probably does get destroyed properly. So let's see, that's E960. Yeah, it gets created once and destroyed once. That means it's using the wrong one here, though, doesn't it? It does. Because when we're in the game, we shouldn't be rendering with the editor's PSO. So that's weird. That's a different mystery to solve, though. That's a good thing I noticed that. So we create it right here in the renderer. And then we load the material. And then a mystery thing. Oh, we load the material again. Okay, so probably what's happening here is because one gets created for the editor and one gets created for the game. When the materials are loaded, like, they don't talk to each other, and one material gets, sorry, both materials get the same PSO instead of one getting one and the other getting the other, right? So there are two materials in memory. One of them is for the editor's version of light maps, and one of them is for the game's version of light maps. But they're both getting the same one. They're both getting the editor's one, it looks like. And that looks to be the root of the problem. Okay. So how do we fix that? Let's go to our resources and let's see. Oh, this has got to be it. This has got to be right here. So this is find resource function, and it looks for a PSO with this name, and they're just both returning the same one. The editor happens to make its PSO first, so it's probably returning the editor's PSO for both of them because they both have the same name. Sounds reasonable. So what are we going to do instead? This is tricky. Let's see how create resource. Let's see how the resource gets created and if we can do something about it at the time that it gets created. Create texture, load material. Maybe over here. Just trying to get my mind around the problem here, like what are all the things that I need to figure out. Material data. Doesn't it have a, oh wait, no, this should be a pipeline state data. Here we go, name. This is where it's creating the pipeline state and it assigns it a name. I mean, I could enforce that all pipeline state objects have unique names, but I don't really think that gets us anywhere. Like, there shouldn't really be any reason that we shouldn't be able to have unique ones like this. They just need to be able to differentiate between editor and game. Is that true? Oh, this hurts my brain. So the editor has one, and the game has a different one. But So the editor has a renderer and the game has a renderer, but they both use the same resource loader. Like in a perfect world, they would use different resource loaders. I don't remember. I think I tried that and it didn't work for some reason. But I don't remember why. Here you go, dog. The other solution, of course, is to name them different things. You know, even though that's true, but even so, none of this should change the fact that it's not freeing the... So maybe we should just track that problem first and not worry about this for now. It's still not freeing the handles properly. Let's see. So it creates, this is the editor's version. It loads the material. When it loads the game's material, it uses the editor's PSO instead of the regular PSO. So that's actually like not desirable, but technically okay. So maybe the solution is to have like only one. Oh no, that's terrible. Only like one shared copy between the two of them. Is that what I was gonna say. I mean, that's not so terrible. Anyway, let's keep thinking about this. So, and you kill the renderer, but that doesn't actually free the one we wanted to free, because it frees the editor one. Which one was that? E960, I think. I'm sorry, it frees the game one. E960. Creating E960, yeah. So it frees... Over here, you kill the renderer and it frees the game one, E960. And then it somehow magically frees the... Okay, because this is where it's freeing the... killing the editor renderer. So let's go and look in the editor. Editor. And somewhere around... Wait, no. We have to look in here. And somewhere around here, it's gonna destroy the game systems. Okay, so we just need to put a little, let's put a little marker here, just like we did in the other places. That we are destroying game systems, which should include the editor, which includes a renderer. Destroyed. Let's see if, hold on. Game systems has the editor within it, and the editor has a renderer within that. So calling this destructor, we'll call this destructor, we'll call that destructor. We'll call editor.h. This destructor, which will destroy a level editor, so level editor, and level editor has a render inside of it, so it will eventually get all destroyed. This big chain of destructors will happen. Okay. See if that compiles. It basically does. So run that. We don't need these anymore. Bong. Okay. Copy all this to here. Let's trace the lifetime again. So we create the editor. We load the material. We create the editor. We load the material. Then we, at some point, created the game render and loaded the material for that, but it used the editor PSO instead of the one it should have. But we're allowing that for now. We kill the renderer for the game, which destroys that one. And then we destroy game systems, which takes this one down a notch. And then we then we destroy the actual destroying resource. There's probably a material resource that refers to that guy right there. Okay, so let's count here. Yes, that's got to be it. That's got to be it. So I think I got it. So there's a editor renderer that creates it, and then a material that. So the editor renderer creates the PSO, and the material refers to the PSO. And so that's two references right there. Then the game material creates the third reference. When they get destroyed, the editor renderer removes its reference. And then one of those materials removes the reference. Did someone hack my email? I sure hope not. Why do you say that? I'm not gonna look at my email on stream. Hold on. I don't see anything weird in my sent folder. I think you're just trying to scare me. Yeah, so one of those two materials is not getting destroyed properly. So let's see here. That means it should be lying around here somewhere. Oh, I can't. I don't think anyone's ever hacked my email. Nope, never. To my memory. Someone came into the chat and said he hacked it. He was lying. I highly doubt that. So yeah, one of the materials is getting destroyed and the other isn't, which is disappointing. So which material is not getting destroyed? One of the two materials is not getting destroyed. So hold on. Let's solve. I think we can solve both of these problems if destroying resource decrease. No, let's do this. Let's learn a little bit more information here. Destroying resource. We're gonna come here, and we're gonna. There are only there's only like two materials in this entire thing, so we're gonna keep a thing right here, D. And we're gonna say resource. Okay. Get type. I think that should be resources. Get type resource. So resource should have a type, I think. Resource get type. Good. And so we're gonna see the type of a material is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 it looks like. Now I have the hiccups. So we're gonna see when it destroys material type 13. So we build that, it succeeds. All right. Bam. Copy this over here. So here's material type, resource type 13. It destroys, it decreases the count by 1. But somewhere else, there should be another material type 13. I don't see it. Ah, maybe that explains it. Only one of these materials is getting destroyed. Okay. Well, but then they both get created. So let's see what the index of the other one is. Load material, and we're going to set a breakpoint there. Load material. And we're going to see the address of both of these materials. Okay. Print resource. There's the address of the first one. Actually, let's verify here that resource, and it's referring to a PSO. Well, the PSO is invalid right now because it hasn't been loaded, but that's fine. Okay, and this looks like it's the level editor's material. And let's continue. Control G. Okay, so after Control G'ing, the other one gets created here. And its address is 78FO. Whereas the first one was 7880. Okay. I probably should have figured out the index instead of... Yeah, I think I want to do that. I want to look up the index in the list because they're not crap. It'll make it easier if I can look up the index in the list instead of just having its address. So... Okay, there's its address. And then its index is going to be... probe is 0 hash 25. So there's one at index 25. And the other is going to be at index... do 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 399, 25 and 399. Great. So tricky to know which is which. No, this, so the second one is the game. So the first one is the editor, then that makes sense, and the second one's the game. 25 and 399. I can remember that. This is Xcode. But down here in the corner, there's a little LLDB. So Xcode these days works on Clang, not on like GCC, not the GNU compiler collection, but Clang instead. And so instead of GDB, they have a little LLDB because that's the Clang thing. LLVM, LLDB. So it's actually very similar to GDB in interface, and it's right there at the bottom there. So 25 and crap, what was it? 399. 25 and 399 are the indexes of the two materials. So step out of here and step out of here and continue with the game and quit the game. All right, bam. So here we go. Material 25. That is, wait, I shouldn't do this. It's now going to be a material, not a pipeline. 25 is gone. All right, now let's see 399. 399 is still there. Material data. And its PSO still points at 21. Why wasn't it cleared out? Do I work at a big company? Do I work at a big four company or a unicorn? I don't understand that question. Yes, I work at a big company. I make games, but I don't like to say what company I work for, so sorry. But it's a big company and you've heard of them. So one of these materials isn't getting destroyed, and I wonder why not. So I think the obvious thing to do then is put a breakpoint here. 399. It's actually destroying resources fairly often, isn't it? What resource is it destroying? Destroying resources of type 9 and 10. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's, oh yeah, it's rendering the mGUI, so it's creating and destroying index buffers. That's fine. Is it EA Unicorn? Unicorn? I don't work for a unicorn, no, but I'm not going to turn this into a guessing game. So let's see. Control G, and then put that there, and then command, and then kill it. Okay. What books did I use to prepare for my interview? That actually is a good question. I think we've talked about this on stream before. I've used, like, I don't know, a lot of the coding interview books are pretty decent, like Cracking the Coding Interview and that sort of thing. I've actually, like, had questions given to me straight out of those books, Cracking the Coding Interview questions, or this one, Programming Interviews Exposed. Both of them are decent books, but probably, like, the thing that will I don't know. This is tough advice because it's not like studying for an exam, right? Like you can't just crack a book and then learn all the things that anybody can ask you at a coding interview. So like my two biggest things are become a better programmer. You can always stand to become a better programmer, and that's the best way to pass interviews. Like the more you know, the more you learn about lots of different topics. Because I've been asked not just about programming, but about a lot of different things. Just to learn as much as you can. About algorithms especially, because whether you like it or not, algorithms are popular topics in programming interviews. Algorithms and data structures. But also, especially if you're going for a game developer interview, helps to know a lot of math, helps to be good with dot products and cross products and solving linear equations and all this stuff. Basic, like, linear algebra stuff. The stuff I cover in my videos. Honestly, watch my videos. Make sure you know all that stuff, and you're pretty well set up for the math portion of a lot of technical interviews. But I would also say a lot of companies index a lot on the personality of a person. So it's not just like the technical part is, of course, important. But they want to see you have good answers to questions like they want to see how you, how can I phrase this without sounding trite? Like, behavioral questions are weird and can be difficult, but can also be a good way to expose the personality of a person. So, for example, question I was asked. Let's think of a question I was actually, hold on, a behavioral question I was actually asked at a real interview. And that wasn't trite and that I, like, did a good job with. So I could say, like, explain a time when you disagreed with somebody on the team, and what was the result. And I came up with an example, and it's okay to disagree with somebody else, but they want to see how you handle the situation. Like, did you do it like a human being, or did you two never talk to each other again? Right? This sort of thing. What is the emotional intelligence of the person that you're interviewing is what they want to know. And, like, things get kind of tense a lot of the times in a workplace, and they want to know that someone's not going to blow up at them or someone's not going to, like, lose their shit. That somebody's easy to talk with, like, easy to reason with, won't, not overly stubborn, not overly, like, this sort of thing. It's really difficult to quantify and talk about, but I think it's increasingly important to tech interviewers. And it's worth thinking about this sort of thing. Like, when you did your last project, think about stories that you can tell, like, that are personal stories that involve you displaying some kind of positive quality and that end in a positive result. Right? And you can tell these stories. And what I did, here's some great advice. Okay? This worked great for me. And yes, at a Google level interview. I went into the interview with literally a piece of paper that I had printed out for myself with a list of stories that I could tell. Okay? And I did this I've done this for the last few interviews, and it works great. Because then I don't have to remember.
Concrete.
Like, a list of concrete stories that I've practiced ahead of time. And each one is a different topic and displays a different positive quality of me, right? And then somebody asked me, tell me about a time when you XYZ. And it may be even, like, a really difficult question. Like, tell me about a time when you had a teammate who's being very difficult and you had to resolve the situation. How did it work? Or something like that. Where it's not always easy to find, like, a good answer. I don't have to sit here and go, let me try and think. Let me try and think of a story, and then there's, like, this awkward silence for a while. Don't have to do that, because I got my list. I just go down the list and say, this story. Just start saying that story. And you've practiced it, and at that point, you can just go into autopilot, and, I think this sort of thing tends to work really well. So, yeah, don't ignore the behavioral. Like, the behavioral problems can be kind of trite. You go on the internet and you read the behavioral problems, and it's like, what is your biggest pet peeve? Hopefully you don't, if you get asked that sort of thing, that's silly, and, like, you maybe don't want to work at a place like that if they haven't really thought about their interviewing process that much. But you can get a lot deeper questions that are designed to try to make you tell a story about yourself that illustrates who you are as a person. And those you should definitely take seriously, and you should come prepared with stories that you can tell that will display those qualities in you. So, and there's probably one other good piece of advice that I can give for job finding, which is, let's do this. Let's go to gamasutra.com. Okay, let's say I want to find a job as a game programmer. It's just what I do. I'm a game programmer. Go to gamasutra.com. Click game jobs. The physics of trains in Assassin's Creed? Sounds fun. And programming. A lot of programming jobs. High-res studios. Sure. Well, no. High-res studios. Come on, programmer. Did I not click on a... Oh, I clicked on high-res studios. Okay, senior programmer. Here is the job posting for high-res studios. Okay, well, that's not always true that the hours, okay, the person says not interested in game dev positions because the hours suck. I'm a game developer. I come in at 9, I leave at 5. I work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I get zero pressure to work more than that. Like, the game industry is very much moved past the idea of doing crunch in general. Like, there are still some places that crunch somewhat. But it's entirely possible to find a job at a game company that doesn't crunch, and it's something that you can ask them during. Like, don't just discount all game developer positions because you've heard that some of them crunch. Still follow up with them if you want to do if you're interested in game programming. Still follow up with them and like ask them about crunch. When's the last time you crunched? How long was it for? Do you want to crunch in the future? Like this sort of thing. Ask other people who've worked there. Like, did they crunch? If this is something that's important to you, don't just write off all game studios because I've not crunched. I've been in this place for a little more than a year. I've not crunched at all. So, right. So you're looking at this job posting, and you want to know how can I get my interview in front of the hiring manager? Because here's you, and then in the middle between you and the hiring manager, there's this ocean of HR. The hiring manager is never going to see your resume until it gets through the ocean of HR. So HR, like, you got to get this HR person to give your resume to the hiring manager. Think about it from the perspective of the HR person. Do they know what Unity engine is? No, they have no idea. They're not game developers. They've never heard of Unity before. Do they know what C and C pound are? I've heard a recruiter say C pound. They've never heard of C sharp. Like they don't know what scale form is. They don't know what animation subsystems are, right? Like they don't know any of this stuff. So you literally take your resume and you see it says Unity on here. So you put Unity on don't lie. Don't put Unity on your resume if it shouldn't be there. But make sure that if you have Unity experience, that it's there. Because they're just going to do this word association game. They're going to see Unity, and they're going to see, what does it say anywhere? Like years of experience? They're going to say years of experience. They're going to, and they're just going to say, okay, this is the job posting. It says XYZ gameplay programming, 5+ years, ship mobile titles. And then they're going to look at the resume and they're going to say, oh, here's 5+ years, Unity experience, ship mobile titles, this kind of degree. Okay. That goes, they see the words on both the resume and then they give it to the hiring manager. Now it's up to you after it gets to the hiring manager. You have to be the person that you portray yourself to be in your resume. So that part's up to you. But once you realize that and you start tailoring your resumes to the job positions with the purpose of getting past the HR people, making sure that the HR people play this game and the correct result happens that you want, it gets a lot easier to get interviews that way. So. So where are we here? We're unloading a bunch of unreferenced resources. So I wonder if we can still. So here's a question: why isn't this 3? What's going on here? What's going on here? Oh crap! It was probably put somewhere else. So the question is, this other material was loaded. Why? HR keyword monkeys, yeah. And recruiters are even more keyword monkeys. They just look for, you can get a recruiter to find your resume if you put the right keywords on it, because that's all they do all day. They just do keyword searches through search engines to try to find resumes. It's exciting. It's exciting. Load material. Resource ID. So I think I want to. Ooh. What was I doing? Here we go. Here we go. If, so we're going to do this. If type is 13, print material 13, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. What's the most prestigious company you have ever been accepted at? Look, man, you either like my advice or you don't. You know? I've gotten offers from big game companies that you've heard of, more than one. I'm not gonna. I don't want to mince meat about it. Not trying to be, you know, testy about it, but. LU. Oh, let's do this. Assets type. So we're just trying to dump the oh, let's do this. We're just trying to dump the a little more information to the log so that I can figure out like what is what indices are where, so that I can query the memory here, get a little more information. Yeah, it is a pretty bad probing algorithm. But it is linear probing, that's the idea. I didn't spend too much time on the probing algorithm because there's a library that does this exact thing somewhere on the internet that I'm just gonna, it's called Griffin Containers, that I wanna just import and use for this thing, so I didn't really spend any time on the probing algorithm. Best way to pass a tech interview is to have the skills required for the job you're applying to. That's great advice. Love that advice. Yeah, that's why I said, like, best thing you can do is become a better programmer. Yeah, like I said, I don't want to spend a lot of time with the I'm gonna replace all this code eventually. And honestly, like, so quadratic is not terribly hard, but probably more involved. But until I get an actual performance problem, I'm not going to spend time on it. It's just not worth it. There's a cost-benefit trade-off to spending time on code, and even if you know it can be faster, if it's not actually causing you any problems right now, there's no point in trying to make it better. It helps. You know the difference between you and your. Yeah, don't screw that one up on your cover letter. But come on, man, this is Twitch chat. He can make that mistake. No big deal. No big deal. Let's be friendly. Why can't we all just get along? Come to Floston Paradise. You'll have a great time. It's my favorite thing to say now when I'm being sarcastic about something. Come to Floston Paradise. You'll have a great time. I don't know if anybody's seen The Fifth Element recently, but I'm just being a nerd. $7.99. Now it's $7.99. Oh. All right. $7.99. So the question is, what else has a reference to this material still open? Because obviously something must have a reference to this material still open. $7.99. And it's preventing it from releasing this reference. I'm thinking that's the case. Let's see. If we go all the way, bam, to the assert, $7.99 is still there. So really the problem is that this material is not getting freed. And the material has a handle out to the PSO, so the PSO is not getting freed. So the question is, what has a handle open to the material? What is the hardest tech interview question you got that you answered correctly? A technical question. I don't know. It's kind of subjective. I mean, like, problems aren't difficult on a single scale. Different people will find different problems difficult in different ways. Depends on the strengths and weaknesses of the person. You're not going to succeed or fail in your interview based on your performance in a single question. If you have the questions aren't, if you get all of the questions correct, you are interviewing for the wrong job, right? And maybe also the interviewers are not very good at what they do. So, like, the goal when they're asking you these questions is not to give you the hardest problem and like stump you and like feel smart themselves or whatever. It's just to figure out where you are. That's all they want to do. Like, they want to learn where you are in a lot of different areas. And so they're going to give you like a lot of different kinds of questions at varying difficulties and varying topics. And they want to see like your approaches to them and what mental tools you have. And they're just trying to figure out where you are. And if they're good at interviewing, they're going to figure out where you are, right? Like, they're going to learn that stuff. Like, they want to know that stuff. And you can't misrepresent yourself. They're going to figure it out one way or the other. So like, it's not like an issue of, it's not an issue of like, what's the hardest problem and I'm going to learn to solve that problem. You're probably misleading yourself if you, right? If you think that you can just learn all the hard problems and then get a job. I'll tell you one bit of advice if you don't know the answer to something. Oh wait, I missed this Tucci guy. Long time I haven't been here. How's it going? Been busy with classes. Nice to see you again. Welcome back. I've been coding as usual. Nothing. Exactly what you see, just what's on the 10. Except we haven't been doing as much math. I'll tell you one bit of advice if you don't know the answer to something. Be willing to admit it. That's also great advice. Yep. Just say it. I've had interviewers kind of lead me towards the answer, and I can like, you know, I do, like, I'll get parts A, B, and C, and then I'll get stuck on part D, and then they'll be like, well, did you try this? And I'll be like, oh, of course that's the answer, and then I, you know, finish with E and F. And that's fine. If I'm interviewing, like if I'm the interviewer, that's fine. Like, not everyone's going to get the perfect answer. Even the smartest person is maybe going to have a brain fart or whatever and not going to be able to fill in every little piece of the problem. Some of these problems are not trivial, you know? So it's not so bad if you don't get every part of the problem and you can just say, well, I don't know this one, you know, at this, you know, I've kind of hit my limit here. I've run out of tools. So, yeah. Honestly, like, again, just go to my math videos. Just like scroll down and there's a link to my YouTube channel where I, if you're not aware of all my math videos, just click my YouTube channel, start watching my math videos. So, okay, here's like a stupid trick that game developers hate. Okay? to To use the crappy clickbait. Okay, stupid trick that game developers hate. You ready? If you're good at math, most game developers are not good at math. So if you're good at math, then you're like impressive in their eyes. You see what I mean? Because most of them don't like math. They just want to make games. Okay? So they ask you a question that involves some math. If you knock it out of the park, because you studied that sort of math, then you are like super smart in their eyes. You don't have to like I don't even think I'm that smart. I just one day decided to get really good at math, right? And it's super impressive when you can do all this calculus like on the spot on the whiteboard or chalkboard or whiteboard or whatever they have. Probably a whiteboard. So getting good at math is definitely, and getting good at math helps. Like it always helps. So yeah, like you can't go wrong learning math, especially the stuff that any of the stuff in my videos is directly applicable. Game developers use it every day. You're not going to go like, what's the application of this? There's always an application. But even the stuff not in my video, you can't go wrong because it teaches you to think and be able to solve problems and this sort of thing. Like it can really never hurt to learn math, to learn a little more math. If you can write a proof, if you write a good proof, you can solve pretty much any algorithm's problem because a proof and an algorithm are basically the same thing. So, I went and got a math degree and it made me really good at solving algorithms because algorithms and proofs are, an algorithm is a proof. Or you could say a proof is an algorithm. So let's see, this person gave me a problem. Given a source word, target word, in an English dictionary, transform the source word to the target by changing and removing one character at a time. I have a coworker at work who likes to ask this exact question. So let me ask you about this problem. Like before I go into solving this problem, because it's a good problem. It's a good problem. But like the problem is if I say the answer, then it weakens its utility as an interview problem, which is possibly okay. This is why you got to change up interview problems every once in a while because the answers get out there. But before I'm happy to I'll go over the whole thing. I'll get the tablet and I'll go over the whole thing. But I've heard of Levenstein distance. I think Levenstein distance is for like spell checkers, but this is not a spell checker. I'll go over like a very high level solution for it, but I want to hear like what your approach is first. How would you try to solve the problem? Like basically I want you to try to solve the problem on your own before I show you the answer. So go. Levenstein distance. I forget what that is. Levenstein distance. It is math and programming. We haven't done enough math recently, so this is fine. A string metric measuring the difference between two sequences. The minimum number of... Yeah. Yeah. Totally. So that is exactly the... oh, look at that. There's an algorithm. There's the answer on Wikipedia. But don't look at it. Tell me how... apply your brain first. Tell me how you would solve the problem first. Okay. Okay, so we're going to loop through all possible English words and find the ones that are one letter off until you end up at the target word. So, like, I'm gonna go over the shortcomings of that algorithm. I get the sense that you already know that there are shortcomings, because you say that's the brute force approach, right? So for example, so you're only finding one letter off, right? So okay, so for one, if you do that, you have to Oh, I'm sorry. It just occurred to me that what this problem wants is the Levenshtein distance, but restricted to, like, I think the Levenshtein distance doesn't make any... So this is actually not the answer. Yeah, the Levenshtein distance doesn't make any disambiguation between words in the dictionary and words not in the dictionary. And this problem says only words in the dictionary. So, sorry, that just occurred to me as I was talking. So yeah, obviously you're only going to get, if you do that, characters that are one letter away, right? So we loop through all the words, and we're going to get all the words now that are one difference away. So now in order to get the next difference, we got to do it again. We got to loop through all the words. So we're building like a set of words that are one distance away. And then we loop through all the words, and then we look to see what's in this set of words that are one distance away. And then we get the set of words that are two distance away. And then, yeah. And then you have those set of words that are two distance away. You loop through all words in the dictionary, find words that are next to that, and then you have the words that are three distance away. So that would solve the problem. So that's a valid answer that would solve the problem. So the fact that you can do that right there is pretty good, right? That's like junior programming material. They can write a brute force solution. That's great. But then of course the drawback of that guy is it's the brute force solution, right? You have to loop through all words in the dictionary, and then loop again through all words in the dictionary, and then loop again through, right? Like, and then so the complexity of the problem is exponential. Transformation chain that, yeah. So it's exponential in the length of the total transformation chain, which I want to make sure I get this right here. So actually, I guess it's going to be like the size of your dictionary times the length of the transformation chain, or something like that. That's going to be the total complexity there. So let's see if we can do better than that. Let's see if we can do like a, something like unfactorial, yeah. I only want to draw one picture, so I'm going to bring the tablet out. Promised I would. And thank you for humoring me about trying your own solution. I think you did a good job with it as well. So like this. Yeah, actually, I think not quite n factorial. I mean, it's definitely too high of a price you want to pay if you, for some reason, actually want to solve this problem, which, you know, honestly, you probably don't want to actually solve this problem. You probably want to, like, I don't know, it's kind of a derivative problem. So the key to this problem is to realize that it's actually a graph traversal problem. Okay? I will explain to you what I mean as soon as I have my tablet set up. So graph traversal is, graphs are a section of math. So I mean, I guess it's not really like a level. Because the thing to know about math is that after like calculus or so, math branches off and becomes like a hojillion different subjects, different like specialties. So it's not like, anyway, it's some kind of college level math called graph theory. So here we are. So we have cat, and then car, and then bar, and then what?
Jar.
Well, we could have just gone directly from car to bar, from car to jar. So bar, and then bear, and then. Okay, so that's good enough. Okay, so let's see what was the problem again? Source word and target word in the English dictionary. So you're given cat and you're given bear, and you want to find this path between them, right? So like here's this path, but then you can also go cat to bat. You can also go cat to cab. You can go car to far. You can go bar. Like, obviously, there are many, many ways that you can do this, okay? Bar to... You can also go bar to far. There's this line right here. You can go bar to bat. Bar to bat. Go bar to bear and bars. Okay, and you can go here. So what is this thing that I'm drawing? Have you seen this before? Have you seen a graph before? Does you recognize this? This is not a graph like this kind of graph. Okay, that also is called a graph, but math is bad at overloading words, and so this is a graph in another definition of the word. A graph, so is it? Yeah, okay, good. It's a graph, right? So knowing now that your data can be modeled by a graph, how do you get from cat to bear? Question, that is a question to you. How do you get from cat to bear? Knowing that your data is a graph. I will wait for an answer. I will wait for as long as Twitch delays me. I hope you get what I'm like suggesting too, and it's not just. I mean, I feel like.
Yeah, it's.
Maybe if you have not seen a graph before, you might not get. So okay, obviously you get from cat to car to bar to bear. But okay, so if you've not seen any graph traversal algorithms, you're looking at this and you're like, obviously you go from cat to car to bar to bear. What I mean though is like you have a graph, your data is modeled by a graph, and there are algorithms, there exist algorithms that can get you from one part of the graph to the other. They're called graph traversal algorithms. So pick one and apply it, and the problem is solved, right? If you've watched my videos, then you know like the A star is an example of an algorithm that will traverse a graph for you. Dijkstra's algorithm is probably not the best algorithm for this situation, but might work. Depth first traversal is probably not a very good one for this task, but will eventually get you an answer. Probably in less time than the brute force solution. Breadth first search will probably get you an answer even faster than that. But A star is probably the most efficient choice for this because it's a directed search. So are we familiar with any of those graph algorithms? If not, go watch the video on my channel about all the graph theory stuff I have in my channel, because you're looking at this and you're like, who the hell would ever need to do this to program anything? And sure, like this exact problem is not something that you would ever want to solve, like I mentioned before, but there are other problems that aren't this one, but involve all the same pieces, you know? Yeah. So like you go to a Mexican restaurant and all the food is the same ingredients just in a different order, right? It's all delicious, right? And that's what it's like. This problem is the same ingredients, you know, the things you have to use to solve. The solutions have the same ingredients as the solutions to actual problems that you're going to have to solve, but they're just in a different order, right? So it's still a meal that you're going to have to eat. I don't know, this analogy is breaking down, but um, so like don't get all like, oh my god, you're gonna have to solve this stupid problem. Who's ever gonna solve this at work? No, you're gonna solve very similar problems, and you should, yeah. Let me paste in chat a link to my graph theory videos. If those don't help, there are many places on the internet that you can read about A-star algorithms. Where are they? Graphs and pathfinding. There you go. Spend some time with those. So like, problem number one is being able to find the brute force solution, which you did. So great. You're already like one step along the road. Problem two is identifying that it's a graph theory problem and that you should use like a graph theory approach to it to get a good solution. Like, they want to see, do you have that tool in your tool set? Do you have the tool of graph theory? Like, have you learned enough graph theory to identify the fact that this is even a graph problem? And three, do you know enough offhand to, you don't even necessarily have to get to three to be hired for an entry-level programming job. Like, if you get to even one, no, I was able to solve this problem independently. Nobody told me the solution. It's like, if you're familiar enough with graph theory, then it's a pretty obvious, you know, it's a pretty obvious problem. I'm not trying to like brag or gloat, but if you solve enough pathfinding problems, then this problem just becomes apparent how to solve it. So my coworker does use this problem in interviews, but he never told me the solution. You're stuck on collision detection in JavaScript? What does that mean? Are you writing like a game in like a web browser game? You must be. I'm not gonna help you on stream, but if you send me specific questions about like math problems you want solved, or maybe like programming problems you need help with, I'm happy to help with that sort of thing. Like, did I put my email down here? I did. Yeah, I put my Twitter, so maybe like message me on Twitter or something, or I don't know. I'm happy to help, but if you need help, but not on stream. If I help people on stream, then my stream will just be a nonstop helping people thing, and I'm happy to help, but you know, I don't want it to take over my stream. So I hope that helps. What do I think was more important for game development, linear algebra or calculus? Calculus is very important, but linear algebra is bread and butter for game development, I would say. The majority of my videos cover linear algebra topics. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 out of all of the series that I have, which I have like, you know, there are just, I have like a dozen maybe, are just devoted to linear algebra for good reason. vectors and matrices alone are like 60 or 70% of what a game developer needs. On top of that, quaternions and a little calculus, a little probability. Obviously, a lot of trig. Trig's very important. And then, like, yeah, so like a good understanding of trig and geometry and this sort of thing is also pretty important. Calculus for writing a physics engine. Yeah, the calculus is mostly necessary for physics engine, although there are some special problems that need calculus, even if you're not writing a physics. But physics is where most of it shows up for sure. Especially like numerical analysis, which is basically applying it's like applied calculus for solving systems, for solving equations, sort of thing. Since acceleration is the integral of distance. Yes, that's a great example. And in fact, I use that example in my videos. That actually doesn't always get used, but so generally, I've talked about this before, but let's talk about it again. So in game engines, they don't always use like the closed form formula where the path of a projectile is a parameter of time, like you would use in physics class, because anything could change at any time. You get like your object can get whacked and go off in a different direction. So they usually just do what's called an integration, where they predict only where the thing is going to be in the very next frame, and then they step it forward and step it forward, and everything happens in these very tiny discrete steps that look like a fluid motion when they're put together. So the typical, gt squared minus v naught t, or plus v naught t plus x naught formula is usually not used in game development, but sometimes can be, and I give an example of that in one of my videos. What do I prefer, object-oriented or functional? Object-oriented programming, depending on how you define it, can have its uses, and functional programming can also have its uses. They are both useful in different situations. So I prefer to use the one that applies the most to the situation I'm in. That's it. Like, depending on the situation, I might reach for one or the other. Yeah, that's it. 1/2 gt squared. That's it. That's the one. Like, what I don't prefer is to have a dogmatic viewpoint where you only always apply one method, right? Like only one ideology to all situations. Because it's not how the world works, right? The world is subtle and nuanced. It's a very angry place, like Donald Trump says. And you can't just apply one ideology to all situations. It doesn't work. Some situations are always going to be an exception to that. So you apply, you be open-minded and you say, okay, in this situation. So for example, like the functional people, there's a guy named James James Haig. James Haig, and he has a blog called Programming in the 21st Century, where he went and he built a completely functional game, and he did it. You can do it, but you get to the end of it, and because you have these limitations in functional programming where you can't have any side effects, you're forced to structure your program in this way, right? Like that all data has to be passed into and out of functions. And this is very difficult, right? It's difficult to, like any non-trivial game, it's difficult to program that way. And so he writes about like all of these problems and how like he discovered functional programming and he wanted to apply it everywhere because functional programming is beautiful, and it is. It's very beautiful. But eventually you just run into this complexity problem where like your code is cleaner in some sense but terrible in another sense because you wrote all of it It is. Pure functional programming is very hard. So what he recommends, what I really like, is 85% functional programming, right? Like, yeah, zero side effects is very hard. So functional programming, here's what it gets you. It buys you mathematical rigor, okay? In many cases, mathematical rigor is useful. If you're programming an algorithm that has to be correct, you should do it rigorously. Or if you're doing like multi-threaded programming, you want to have no side effects, use functional programming. If you're doing the Linux file system, this is one of my favorite examples. Linux file system is object-oriented, but it's written by the kind of people who will tell you that object-oriented programming and C++ is terrible. And it's true. A lot of terrible code has been written in C++, but object-oriented was the correct solution, was anyway a very good solution for that problem, the problem of writing the Linux file system. And so they used it, right? Like they weren't, no, we're not going to use object-oriented, never. They used the best tool for the problem, and that tool happened to be object-oriented programming. So I do tend to write, I write a lot of things functional. I have a lot of functional functions. I have a lot of like pure functions buried in my code. But at some point you have to write side effects, or else I'm trying to make an actual game, not a functional program. So yeah, with like 85% functional, you get the small picture functional, and it's a lot easier to reason about the small picture of the code, but you don't sacrifice the larger structure of your program to functional programming. That's my current thought process on it anyway. These are all very good questions. Thank you for asking them. I appreciate it. I enjoy answering them. I don't know if you can tell. Between thinking about this bug. Oh no, did it crash? Good. Do I still think I'll be programming when I'm 50? Oof. I don't know. I'm not 50 yet. How does the I/O monad solve the side effect thing so writing to a file has no side effects? Well, monads. Monads are something I don't understand fully, to be quite honest with you. So I think I can answer your question by looking up Cleasley arrows. Oh, come on. Just give me the... Well, okay, we'll look up Cleasley categories. Why not? No, this doesn't have the list that I wanted it to. Cleasley functors? Ugh, how do I get it in English, not in Haskell? Okay, whatever. So, forget that. Doing I/O is an example of something that's very difficult in functional programming because it has these implicit side effects where, like that's the whole point, right? The whole point is to have a side effect you write to a file, and the side effect is that the file got written, right? Any I/O, or even like printing things to a screen, this sort of thing. So the idea, one of the central ideas of functional programming is to cover up that side effects by making like an implicit return value of your function. As a very broad generalization of what it's doing. Like it makes like a hidden return value of your function that is the side effect. Okay. And then like you call the function and then it does the whatever IO it needs to do, and then it outputs the new object with the IO having been done to it. And I brought up the Cleasley arrows because I read an article at some point about them, about how like all of the bad things that make things not unpure functions that you can do in imperative programming, Cleasley arrows like solve this problem. So writing IO, writing to a file, or printing to the screen is one example of something that you write that like has a side effect, but that you want to have a side effect. Another example is you have some global parameter of your game, okay, like the player's mouse sensitivity or something like that. So you have this global parameter, and you want it to affect everything in the game. Like you want this side effect to percolate everywhere in your game. And so Cleasley arrows solve this by making a hidden parameter that, like, they're just taking the side effects and hiding them, like shoving them into the function and making them explicit parameters and implicit parameters and implicit return types. And the result is that now you can do all this function composition and stuff. When I say function composition, I mean like if you have a function that takes integers to integers, and you have another function that takes integers to integers, then you can do like this. Okay, FG. That's a composition of functions, and FG still takes integers to integers. This is just composition of functions. Okay, if G takes integers to reals and F takes reals to complex numbers, then FG is a function that takes integers to complex numbers, because G takes the integer to a real, and then the result of G gets put into F, and F takes the real to a complex, and so the composition takes integers to complex. Mathematicians really like to do this, and so they really like functional programming languages that let you compose functions even though you have side effects. And that's basically what the monad is, right? It lets you continue to have that rigorousness where you're composing actual pure functions, not like crappy programming things. It lets you have that mathematical rigor even though you're programming and not actually doing math. That's my view anyway. That's my view of like why people are so obsessed with, you know, it's always people who have a really strong math background, and I'm one of those. Like I went to school for math. What is a monad? That is the question. I honestly couldn't tell you what a monad is. It is a thing in category theory that's really important for functional programming. I've read a lot about monads, and like they still haven't clicked for me. I will probably never read enough about monads or code enough with monads for them to click. But from what I've read, like if you just want to make games and you're not a mathematician, or if you just want to like work at a company somewhere programming and you're not a mathematician who's doing research, you really don't need it. Like I've seen the payoff of monads, and it's not something that sounds like it will be useful to me. It is useful to some people in some situations, but I don't know. I could be wrong about that, of course. I'm wrong about many things. Every time you have an opinion, you open yourself up to being wrong about it. Yeah. So what's the takeaway from that? I would be interested in like, what is a monad? I would read about monads, try and read monad tutorials if you can. Don't like get upset if you don't understand them, or if you don't get a big takeaway. Like, they're probably worth learning about, because anything that changes the way you think is worth learning about. But I wouldn't drop everything you're doing to go become a functional programmer and use monads all day. I don't think they're the solution to the complexity. I once met a programmer who we were having this conversation about complexity in game programming, and you know how 10 years ago it was object-oriented programming was going to save us from, I think I talked about this 1 or 2 streams ago as well. Object-oriented programming is the saver. It's going to save us from complexity. And what did it do? We just had these gigantic class hierarchies that are terrible, and that, like, yeah. And then 5 years ago, it was scripting languages, and scripting languages were going to save us from the complexity, and they didn't, right? Like, then we just have this gigantic mass of scripts that nobody can tame, and then you spend all this time trying to maintain the scripts, and like, wow, it's amazing how inefficient programmers can be and still get things done. And then now it's actor component systems. Actor component, like actor components. So like you don't use the object or everything's an actor that has components attached to it. There's no hierarchy anymore, except that at my work, the components are part of the components are all polymorphic, and then the actors are still polymorphic. They just have components on them, and it's like at my work, they couldn't decide whether to have an object hierarchy or a component system, so they just did both. Oh yeah, serverless. That's yeah. Forgetting about that even, because that doesn't even apply to video games, like the Amazon Lambda thing and all that stuff. That's cool, and I'm sure that will help web development a great deal. But like, so as far as how to organize video games, like there's no. Video games are complex, and so I was talking with this guy, and he said that state monads are the way to do it. State monads. Like, that's the solution to the great video game programming complexity problem, is state monads. I don't know. They're going to be complex until we die. Like, there might be a solution to that. But that's just, I don't know, that's just the way games... What's the next big hype thing in video games? If I only knew, I would be able to make a lot of money. Maybe it's state monads. You never know, man. You never know. Something's holding a handle to my material and it's not letting go. What could it be? What could it be? The problem is, once you solve the problem, we create games and apps that are even bigger and thus more complex. I mean, I feel like games are actually pulling back on the complexity scale. 5 years ago, it was about as complex as games will get, and then designers realized more complex doesn't equal more money. But they are still very, very complex. You know, if we are ever able to increase the complexity budget, I don't know if designers would take advantage of that unless they were able to also increase the design complexity budget, which is a completely different thing, like with completely different constraints. How much complexity can you teach a player in a finite amount of time? How many things can be in a video game before the design turns into soup? But if they needed the additional complexity, I'm sure we would find a way to deal with it, even if just by brute force. I thought video games are finished and we just increase texture resolution and map sizes now. Maybe. What are your thoughts on the end of Moore's Law? Is Intel's tick-tock cycle the end of Moore's Law, or simply lack of competition from AMD? No. Processors are never going to get faster. It's physics. It has nothing to do with competition. I don't know. AMD's been giving... I mean, the competition is there. It's not non-existent. they're not doing as well now, obviously, as they were before. But anyway, I don't know. Moore's law ended at like 10 years ago. What do you want me to say? That hasn't been said already. It's over. People should write faster programs now, but they haven't realized that because there's still this linear uptick in speed of processors, like a linear incremental improvement every year. So I don't know. Maybe a lot of people tend to overestimate what the processor and the compiler can do for them, I think. But I'm an engine programmer, so I would say that. If they could just make web pages that load fast, I would be happy. That's it. I would be happy. Computers can never get any faster if they could just make web pages that don't take a few seconds to load. I got opinions. I got a lot of opinions. Question is, where's this material handle hanging? And I don't even know where it would be. I don't know what would still have a reference to this material, but there clearly is one reference out on it somewhere. So maybe I need to do this same thing as I did before and look up all of the references to materials and do the same tracking as I did before. Oh man, it's getting late. I don't know if I want to do that. 10 megabyte web pages now with 100 JavaScript files and 10 fonts. It's probably the fonts are a lot of that. But all the JavaScript processing surely is not helping. Do I know corn? Do I co-com? I don't, sorry, I don't understand that question. Do I cow comb? Do I comb cows? No, maybe I should. Microsoft.com. Do I Microsoft.com? Still don't get the question. Load material. Let's do this. Load material. Don't actually load any materials. Oh! Component object model. Oh, duh. Microsoft's component object model, of course. Yeah, no, not really. I was never a DirectX guy, so I didn't have any never had any reason to use COM. Yeah, I guess. I don't know, it's a thing. Well, what about it? What? I don't know. It's a thing, yeah. Is it? Do you have a question about it? I think I have an object. I think I have this static mesh, which has a static geometry, which is a model. And the model has... it's dead. Don't bother with it. Unless you're doing DirectX programming or Direct3D programming. I wouldn't bother with it, no. And it's not anything groundbreaking, or like if you ever need to learn it, you can just learn it. It's just a way of writing software. I don't see that it's entirely groundbreaking or anything. If you need to learn Direct3D, then you'll just learn COM on the way. You'll be like, oh, that's COM. Boring. So a model has a handle to a where are my resources? Model. model data. And there's a mesh. And the mesh has a material. I think this material is what is not getting properly destroyed. This material handle right here. Can I verify that? Resources. Model data. I have no idea about MongoDB. I know 0 things about MongoDB. I know that it is called MongoDB. And that it is a database. I know that it is one of those fancy new fangled databases that is, what do they call the database that's not a relational database, but like a relationless data? I don't even know. I'm not going to pretend to know anything. So as a game programmer, I've written SQL statements before. I know the basic idea of insert, update, delete sort of thing, but I've never really done much with databases. I don't know what web scale is. I don't know what that means. Generally, gameplay programmers just don't really need to know much about databases. And I'm I'm a designer, but I pretend to be a gameplay programmer. If that doesn't tell you my background. My background, the full story of my background is actually a lot of the stuff that nodal databases, sure, if you say so. A lot of my background is, you just scroll down a little bit and it's there. Some of the stuff I've done, basically mostly video games, but also some like programming projects and stuff. Do I know how to implement a database using a B+ tree? I know what a B+ tree is, and if you told me to implement a database using one, I could probably figure it out. Actually, I haven't written a B+ tree in a long time, so I'd have to review that. But I don't know. Wait, hold on. Do we know what a B+ tree is? That tree that grows horizontally, I think. B+ tree. Yeah, it is what I'm thinking. It just grows out like this. It's a pretty good data structure, but I don't know. You'd probably use it as the index of a database? I don't know, man. I'm not trying to say this stuff isn't important. It's obvious. It's a very difficult problem. It's an important problem. It's not my thing. I haven't learned anything about it, so it certainly interests a lot of people. And I'm glad that somebody solves that problem so that I can use websites. That's for sure. Let's expand, since I now know that it is actually the material that's the problem, not the model. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. This guy. Does he ever get destroyed? Does he? Destroy that guy. That should destroy him. But this is worth investigating. Entities. Destroy. A B+ tree is a tree that doesn't study hard enough to get an A. I like that. How do you handle code reviews at your work? Oh my god, don't get me started about the stupid code reviews. Well, so we have software. Yeah, the names are confusing. B+ tree is a data structure that holds a tree that expands horizontally instead of expanding deeply like a binary tree does. A star is an algorithm that can search a graph. So one is a data structure, the other is an algorithm. I don't know why the mathematicians like naming stuff in weird ways. Anyway, so we have our code reviews at work. We have this software that we post code reviews to, and then like there's not a lot of top-down direct. There was, but like it fell apart under new leadership of like what it means to be a code review, and then like the result is that people like the code reviews are kind of all over the place right now, and I've been trying to push them into a direction that's like, let's stop nitpicking about syntax in code reviews. And a successful tactic that I used to do that was to get everybody to use this software called Uncrustify, which is like it just formats source code. And so I would just be like, okay, now everybody run Uncrustify on your source code before you submit it. And then like now we never have to talk about syntax again. Our current policy, which I'm not a big fan of, don't read too into it. Yeah, we do need to ship it before we push. We used to not need to ship it before we push. I mean, it's like if your team is writing production code, then you should probably get like 5 shipments. You know, if it's going out to 1 million people, you should probably be pretty rigorous about the shipments. If you're trying to act fast, then maybe you should not worry about shipments. I mean, I think it's pretty subjective whether or not you should do ship it. Like, and it has problems. NBA star algorithm. There are problems to every strategy because then people will like hold shipments against you, if you know, or whatever. And I mean, maybe not that much. You'd probably, if people are holding shipments against you, you probably work in a pretty crappy place. I don't think I have that problem in my place. But then there's like, you know, people reviewed it and they forgot to press the ship it button, and then you have to go bug them about you know what I mean? Like there are all these, the whole code review thing I feel like is a mess in general in the programming industry right now, and I wish somebody would come up with a better thing. But it is what it is, and it's probably better to have it than to not have it. It certainly makes the code better. That's weird how it always ends with 99. So what did I just add? Increase. Oh, I didn't. Oh, that's right. We don't write as many unit tests, honestly. We don't, because video games and unit tests don't always get along. It's really difficult to write unit tests for video games because, you know, video games are a system. They have emergent behavior. They are chaotic. The unit, like, so that's hard, that's difficult, that's just, like, you can't write unit tests that always pass for a random number generator. It's just an impossible thing to do, mathematically impossible. So, and any, you know, system with divergent or emergent behavior is gonna have that same property. So unit tests aren't always very effective. So like, but for the very, like, I do have unit tests. Like, look at my unit tests. I'll show you my unit tests. That is not to say never write unit tests. For VTB, which was my file format library, basically, these are all my unit tests. It's not terribly good coverage, but it's all the important features right there. So for file format libraries are not emergent behavior, you can test the whole thing. I have tests for math stuff. So this tests to make sure all the Euler angles stuff that I do is correct. Geometry, all these tests are disabled, but these tests, make sure that all my like triangle intersection algorithms are correct, that sort of thing. Matrix math, make sure all the matrices are transforming properly. I don't know. This is for memory allocation routines. Make sure so like the lower level stuff is certainly you can test it. But a gameplay engineer generally doesn't write that sort of thing at such a low level. And then a lot of systems are just like a console and console variables, for example. You write it once and it'll work, and you don't need to test it because if it breaks, everybody will know. Like nobody will be able to get any work done because it broke. You won't be able to get your own work done. Like it'll be really obvious if it broke, but you'll almost never be able to. You'll almost never have to change it. So the cost, like we spoke before, everything has a cost, and the cost to writing unit tests is the time that you invest to write and maintain those unit tests, and sometimes it's just not worth it. A better thing than working collaboratively and double checking each other. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't work collaboratively and double check each other. That is good. The bad thing is the current form by which we try to systematize working collaboratively and double checking each other. Like, I'm all about working collaboratively and double checking. It's the current implementation of that idea that has, a car with 2 steering wheels. Yeah, that's paired programming. Pair programming can be useful. All of these things can be useful, okay? Code reviews are useful, of course. They just have drawbacks that make them sometimes less useful than they're useful. Pair programming can be useful if you have a specific... Like, I've done some killer pair programming with trying to solve difficult and complex problems where 2 people thinking in parallel and catching each other, the things that each other has missed, and reasoning about things together for a problem that's more complex than something one person can fit in their head. Pair programming works great. Works amazing. But if I'm just like writing code, please don't have someone over my shoulder telling me how to write my code. You know what I mean? Like, it's certainly useful to have pair programming. Sometimes. Don't require me to do it though. I don't know. I feel like I tend to say the same thing over and over. I already put a breakpoint here. I'm talking so much I'm getting lost on like where my debugging is. I feel like a lot of the things I'm saying are kind of the same theme over and over. Yep. Remove entity didn't get called. Which is like I guess a very like I don't know, I don't want to use a political term like centrist or moderate, but like maybe a moderated point of view that like the older here's the thing, the older I get, the more I have been wrong in the past. Right? Like the more time goes by, the more I the more times I've been proven wrong. Oh, it ran. Cool. The more times I've been proven wrong, the less I'm likely to take a hard stance on something, because experience shows that I've been wrong a lot. And so if I take a hard stance on something now, it's possible that I will be like, the more I learn about how I've been wrong in the past, the more I realize that I'm likely to be wrong when I take a hard stance. And just looking up the mathematics of it, right? Just looking at the probability. Chances are pretty good. Yeah, the more I know, the less I think I know, right? Like an expert is someone who's made all the mistakes before, right? So like the more I learn about myself and programming and teams of programmers and how they work together and programming systems, and like the more I'm just like, there's no one, you know, you can't just, there's no one answer here. You can't just say that this is the way to do it. So a lot of my answers have been in that vein, which is kind of, I guess, a boring way to say it. Like, at some point you want to say, like, have a fucking backbone. Decide on something. Like, advocate an opinion strongly, right? And in many cases, you want to do that. You want to have that backbone. You want to be colored and not gray. But it's risky to do that, obviously. So, and it's nicer if you could, like, if you never take a hard stance on something and you're always open to change your opinion, then you'll never be wrong. You'll never be right either, but I don't know, like, what?
Misinformed. You could be misinformed but not wrong.
You might be misinformed. I don't know, but if you're always willing to update your everybody's always misinformed about something. If you're always willing to update your opinion given new facts, then you'll be the least misinformed. At the least. Remove entity. We're not removing it. This is a really simple bug. We're just not removing entities. I don't know why it took me so long to realize that this is my bug. Are we just not unloading the yeah, we're not unloading the level. We just have to unload the level. We're not unloading the level. Oh my god. We just got to unload the level. Okay. Problems. We're going to fix this bug. It's a silly and simple bug to fix. I'm embarrassed that it took me so long. So the problem, to recap, spent almost 3 hours looking for this bug. Totally worth it though, because we had a lot of interesting conversations. We had an entity that we didn't remove. It has a model. That model has a material. That material has a pipeline state object. That pipeline state object did not get cleaned up. So we clean up so we unload the level when we're exiting. That will destroy the entity, which will remove the pointer, the handle to the model, which will the model has a handle to the material that will be also removed. And the material has a handle to the pipeline state object, which will be removed. And then all of those references will reset to 0 and they'll get cleaned up. Yep. So how do we unload? So let's do it. How do we unload the level? How do I, oh, that's the question, isn't it? How do I unload the level? Well, here's the first question. Where's level load called? Is it dot load or arrow load? Dot load. Grotto game initialize. So great. So somewhere around here there'll be a grotto game destroy. Grotto game destroy. And in grotto game destroy we do like this. Grotto game destroy. What's the order? Set up game systems and then load the level. So here we do it the opposite way. We unload the level, and then destroy the game systems. Should work. Government enforced curfew.
What?
Wow. Goodbye.
What country they in?
Iran. Also, I'm sorry that my country did jerk things to your country. Guess that person didn't hear that, but... Government enforced curfew on internet usage? I've never heard of such a thing. In Iran. Internet. Curfew. How do you spell curfew? Curfew. Yeah, no, I got it. Internet censorship in Iran. government has instituted nightly systematic blackouts. Huh. Starting from early evening to early hours of the morning. Huh. Wow. That's terrible. Weird. World's ending, man. Okay. So we're gonna unload. Hold on. Is there a way to? I don't want to unload it if it's not already loaded. Is it a problem? No, it's not gonna be a problem. I can just call unload. It's probably fine. Unload. Build that. That didn't work. What did I do? Entity. This one. Oh, I have to give it an entity list to unload. Give me a break. Load entity list. Here's a pointer to a thing that you want. Where is it? Here. All right. Good. Good. So, get rid of all these breakpoints. Run it again. So now we're going to Control G. Yep, that works. Oh, my mouse doesn't work anymore. And it quits properly. Hooray. We fixed it. Now I have to go and find all these printfs. We didn't get to the materials stuff at all. Oh my goodness. Don't need this anymore. That is too bad. Too bad. So sad. Resources. So just removing all these printfs that I added before. Good old print debugging, you know, it feels, yeah, it feels kind of weird to use printf debugging when I have this amazing debugger, but sometimes it's just the fastest way to do it. Yeah, I don't know. That appears to have gotten all of them. Sometimes it's just faster than stepping through the debugger. If you just get all the, like, when you're looking for temporal data, printf debugging is the fastest way to do it. That's why networking programmers, for example, very often use printf debugging. Good old printf debugging, because they can't, I mean, it does help to break in the debugger sometimes, but generally the things that happen for them happen over long periods of time. And you want to get a picture over time instead of a picture at a particular time. So I'm just scrolling past all this stuff, and I'm going to scroll back up and examine it more closely. Make sure I didn't leave any printfs in there. Make sure every particular line of code is accounted for. That's a lot of code I wrote, man. Look at all that. Ooh-wee. All right. So the camera moved around in the level. That's fine. That's boring. Asset library. This is a bug I have to fix. It rewrites the asset library even if nothing changed. This is, oh, I added a new entity type, and it's got nothing in it, so that's pretty boring. The level changed, so that's fine. The model apparently changed. It's a little bigger now. Oh, it's because I added some new information, because I added a new entity type, so I guess there must be 18 bytes worth of that. I added a new Oh, I changed the format of the level. The level no longer has. This is much better design now. I'll show you. Access format. T level. So the level used to have a static geometry name entry, and no longer. So I took this guy out, and I made instead a static geometry entity whose job it is to just be static geometry and render. This is an entity who's just a static mesh, and the job is just render itself. And so instead of having a special parameter right here that's the static geometry to level, now that is an entity, and so basically that guy got folded into this guy, and so I could remove that from the format. And so I made a new version and removed that. So that was a good design decision, I think. Got a new entity type, and that's the static mesh entity, and he just is a string that has the file of the mesh that was created. Added a few things to my key value class. That's pretty boring. I don't know if this was a bug fix or this just. No, I think this was a bug fix to my memory allocator, so that's just going to be in here. I added to my file format library the ability to set a typeless value. Like if you just have a string and you have a value, like a value in a format, like a field in a format that you want to assign to, the field knows what its type is, and so you could just, like, I made this function that just says, okay, what's that type? And then it's got this big switch case of types, and it'll do the conversion. Because the actual members of the class require you to know the type already, and so this guy is typeless. And just adding some curly brackets here. Oh, I added a way to search for formats in the generated code. This is still in my file format library. Just some changes to support the work that I was doing. Pretty boring, actually. What did I do here? Oh, I don't remember why I did this. I split the main sources. So the main sources are part of the executable, but everything else, oh, I remember why. Everything else I split out into a different library. So it doesn't have to be recompiled every time, because like there's the editor version, there's the game version. And they're like mostly the same thing. With one pound include different. And that shouldn't affect most of my game sources. Like whether the editor is there or not, the game sources shouldn't care. So I split that into a different library that's compiled once, and then linked into the editor version of the game and the non-editor version of the game. And then this is just like the entity system that I think I was working on 2 weeks ago. Here we have, okay, so this is the bug fix. This is that last bug fix that we did. So this is the change. This is the change where I removed the special case static geometry stuff, render static geometry, and instead I iterate all entities and call render on them. This is terrible because I did something. So I did some good things and I did some bad things. I made these virtual functions in my entity class. Really, my entity class should just be the entity ID and nothing else. I added these virtual functions just to get something done, because I want to move on to something else. Later I'm going to come back and I'm going to make it into a rendering component so that this junk isn't here. And then I'll remove the virtual functions. I'm not, like we talked about before, I'm not universally against virtual functions, except that in this case, I don't think they're the best solution to the problem. To do, declare entity doesn't run because there's something else linking. Oh yeah, I think that was a stupid problem that we ran across 2 streams ago. So this is the entity registration stuff that I revamped it all, and I made it a little bit more general so that I could get different types of entities in there. So this was the lion's share of the work right here. All of the entity registration stuff. And that is a lot of work. Do we see any printfs in there? Shouldn't be any. I don't see any printfs in there. Yep. That stuff that I have to kill. Yep, these are just boring changes. More registration stuff, entity system. Yep. Glad it's all done. Namespace junk. Oh, I should go remove that. Oh, I'm glad I did this check. Okay, game. Namespace junk. Yep, that's no good. Yep, that was indeed junk. Glad I caught that. I think I was trying to solve the stupid translation unit problem that I ran into 2 streams ago. That I had to hack my way around. It's really ugly stuff. Apparently, like if like for my declare register entity stuff, if I don't call into that translation unit externally, the whole translation unit will be removed, even though there's stuff in the translation unit that calls out. It's I don't know. I think it might be a compiler bug. Should probably be more hesitant than to call things compiler bugs, but it feels like a compiler, either a bug or like a design fault. So this is me removing the static geometry stuff. I mentioned that before. Removed all the static geometry stuff. Remove static geometry stuff, so that code is a little nicer. Here, so now that I'm removing the static geometry stuff, I have to create an entity for all my static geometry while I compile the level. So that's what this is. And I remove... I think I just moved that code up there. Remove that. And then this is the changes to my memory database. I always like to look and see how big my memory database grew, and it looks like it grew by about 40K. So that's cool. And the Igor compiler grew by about 10K. Great. I'm going to commit this. Updates to the entity registration system and entity list, and static mesh entity that displays a static mesh. And what else? That's the big things, I think. Yep. Enter. Oh my god, I'm pushing that to the server right away. I don't want to lose all that work. Holy cow. Holy cow. So that's going straight up to GitHub. Alright. And with that, I think I'll close the stream. Geez, that was eventful. That was all bug fixes. Didn't get around to the... So I think the remaining material system work is not blocking me to do other things I want to do. So I think I'm going to leave that for last time, and we are actually going to finish the material system on stream last time. I'm pretty confident. Let's go over real quick what has to be done, because I teased you folks about it, and now you're probably like, WTF, mate? He told us we were going to get material system. So here it is. So I sketched out this code at the end of last stream, and now here's the actual code. Minus a little bit of genericness. So when we go to draw something indexed, we take a material handle. So you say, I want to draw this mesh that is in this vertex buffer and this index buffer. And this is how many verts I'm going to have for every instance. And the first vert is here in the index buffer. And then I don't have, but I could easily make it so that you could draw multiple instances of this mesh. And then you give it a transform, and then this is what we're working on. You give it a material. So then what's it going to do with this material? Well, if it's not valid, that's like an assert or something. If it's not loaded yet, then probably it should be replaced with like a debug material that's always loaded or something, like a checkerboard pattern, or I don't know. Missing texture material or something, I don't know. I haven't worried about that. I'll do that later. So then you get the material data, and material data is this thing. Okay, and it has all of the information about the material that has been like when the material was loaded, it assembled all of this information. It figured out what PSO it wants to use, and it has handles to all of the textures of the material just sitting right there. Okay, so we have all that data sitting here. We just make sure that everything is sane. We have some asserts. And then we grab the PSO and we say, okay, use that PSO. And then I don't have a loop. Last time I showed that it was going to be a loop. I don't have a loop yet. So this has to be a loop. And that's the generic part that I haven't done yet. But we do grab the textures out of like out of the material data here. Okay, I have this find texture parameter here. And then this is no good actually. Like this is, in truth, this is not so great. It's going to be a loop, and like all of the information needs to be right here in an array, and you just loop the items of that array, and for each item you have some kind of switch case here or something, and you say, okay, use sampler. Like if the parameter of the material is like a texture, then assign the sampler and assign the texture. And if it's like a floating point parameter, like specularity value or something, I don't know, then you assign that uniform buffer. And then like you do all that stuff. And then it also needs to look up this guy right here, which are the binding indexes of all of those parameters. And there's a table with all the binding indexes up here. So this needs to go into some special table that, that holds this so that it can be accessed more generically in this loop. And that is, I'm pretty sure, something that can be done in 2 hours. So just to make a sketch of that, it might look something like, from here on out, for, material data, get parameter k or something, or get, this would be get num parameters. Get num parameters k++. And then you say get material data, get parameter k, and that gives you some parameter, okay? And then you have a switch case on the type of the parameter, okay? And then depending on what type of thing it is, you might have case texture. Okay, it's a parameter texture. Then you start doing this stuff. Okay, you say equals parameter get texture. And then you texture. And then parameter get sampler. Right? You do all this stuff. And then you have another case that is for a floating point argument or something. Okay, so that is more generic than individually finding textures. And so I can in this case, if I write this code, I'll be able to load any parameter I want to into this material, which I want to be able to do. So I'm going to delete all that and make sure I didn't actually change the file here. Yeah. So that's I think what we're gonna tackle for next week, which I think will be fun. For now, the dog wants to be fed, and I'm getting tired. It's past my bedtime. But I did have a great time talking with all of you, coaching, interview questions and that sort of thing. Good luck to the people who asked that stuff. If you want more tips or have more questions, you can contact me. Like, look at my Twitter or whatever. I'm happy to help with that sort of thing. But honestly, do go watch my videos. They will help. They are the exact sorts of things that are asked a lot in programming interviews. So yeah, next time we're going to do this material stuff. Thank you all for coming. I had a lot of fun. And yeah, okay. We'll see you next week.